Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Wow, do we have an episode for you today? Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I'm Daniel Wood. I will be your host when I interview Roger, the Castle Man. Yes, we are talking castles. Me and Roger analyze together, how do you go about buying a castle? What are the yields you can get? What are the strategies you can use? How can you become a successful castle investor? It's a super exciting episode. Roger is very transparent in how the risks are, what you got to be careful about, the timelines, but also the upside. This is one of the most exciting episodes. Yes, we might not be buying a castle this year, but wouldn't it be awesome to buy a castle in the future? Roger is one of the founders of Celtic Castles, and like I said, he's known as the Castle Man. So if you want to know about castles, Roger is the place to go. So let's get into the interview. Let's buy some castles together. Welcome back to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am excited to be here with Roger, the Castle Man, and we're going to be talking castles. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Daniel.
Yes, I'm super excited about this because, who doesn't want to buy a castle? But let's look at it as like for a lot of us listening, we are property investors and this is the ultimate property, but it's a little different. And we were talking about this before. It's different doing a castle repair and refurb than it is from doing a pub conversion. So let's get into the details and see how I would go about this. So if I'm going to buy a castle, and I'm coming to you, Roger, what do we do first? How do we kind of lay the land here?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Really, you've got to think about location. Where do you want to be? I mean, obviously, a lot of the properties that we're involved in are in the hospitality sector. And people are buying these properties, one from a passionate point of view, possibly lifestyle, but ultimately they want to potentially bring guests in, generate revenue that helps pay for the money that they've spent out. And there are some fabulous stories. If viewers have been watching Grand Designs, there's a fabulous property called Peel Castle, which is one of the first Grand Design properties you could stay in. And if you watch their journey, and the chap, Francis, had walked past this castle as a child, had fallen in love with it, wanted to come back and rebuild it. It was in a terrible state of repair. And he knew what to do, but he still went through a huge amount of pain with walls falling down, huge costs, unexpected costs from, finding Roman remains. And that's £25,000 gone that was never budgeted. So people who get involved in castle properties need to have deep pockets and huge resilience, without a doubt. But they successfully rebuilt the castle. They ran out of money umpteen times, but eventually did get the property up and running. And I remember watching it and thinking, that's got to be a B&B. They've got to let those rooms out just even to start paying for the bills to run this property. Yeah. And we got involved with them and had a great time selling those rooms. And when it went on television, it just went daft. We sold the castle for 2 years in 2 weeks with the amount of interest. But also their understanding of the hospitality market. We had to re-educate them, get them to understand the value of the fact that it wasn't a B&B, it was a castle experience, so you could get more revenue from that. And they've since sold the property, but have they made profit? Probably not. But the experience that they've gone through and the property that they've developed and that passion has led on to other things. So they may not have made it on that property, but they did on others afterwards.
Yeah, which is often the case. You learn from your first deal and then you expand. But if I want to make my learning cost as low as possible, what's important, if I'm going to go through a business plan, let's say, I come to you and we decide we're going to do a castle deal.
Okay.
Your investment deal, I'm going for here. Obviously, I will stay in the penthouse once in a while, but it's an investment deal here. So what kind of factors do we need to look at? Because obviously it's very different from just your regular hotel.
Yeah. Well, it is entry cost to start with. If you can find a property at good value, and you can pick some of these properties up. Some of them are in quite a ruined state, but for £250,000.
Yeah.
Then it's the time to take to renovate that property, and the cost element and the hidden cost. This is not just the budget will go over 10%. The budget could go over 50, 60%.
Right.
Certainly if you come across, things.
So essentially, if you say, the refurb, I'm buying this for 250,000, the refurb should be 750,000. I should be budgeting closer to 1.5 million in refurb.
Yeah, in real terms. And if you get any change out of that, then that's a plus. The other thing that people underestimate with these historic properties is the time. So, you think you can go in there and it might be, year and a half, 2 years to refurb. I've worked with people who've been doing this for 13, 14, 15 years before they've got it completed.
Right.
And nobody anticipates that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an example, a 5-star castle that's been operating as a hotel with 17 rooms, they wanted to add 3 more rooms, this penthouse suite. This would be the one you'd be in, Daniel.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it's taken 4 years just to get the planning consent to allow them to
right.
open it.
So
that's
planning is one big, because it's in a historic building. Yeah. So there's a lot of hoops. And then I can imagine in the refurb, it's not like you can go and get any building company to do it. They have to know how to do it. You got to source the right materials, and you have to have the right tradesmen who can actually build like era specific style properties.
Absolutely. You're recutting stone from scratch again. It's the interiors that have to be to a certain standard, and you've got to maintain, it could be Historic Scotland, various other bodies, wherever they are, they come in and check that the historic authenticity of what you're doing meets their standards. If they don't like it, it will not go ahead.
Oh, so then rip out and do it again, do it properly.
Absolutely.
Right. And I can imagine that's a part of the planning application as well, is you have to come in and show these are the people that are going to do it. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And we will be able to live up to that historical standard.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what makes it take so long. It's the planning, and then it's just but it's the quality of the work. It's the historical relevance.
Absolutely. But also, I mean, I know a couple who bought a castle up in Scotland. It was an asking price of 390. They got it at auction for, I think it was 335. Mm-hmm. They didn't do a lot to it. They slapped a bit of paint on and put it onto Airbnb. Okay. That started to generate revenue. And because it was sort of quirky and different, they got a bit of marketing and publicity behind it. So that drove more business. So they were taking money, but they knew deep down they had to rip this castle back to the stone and refurbish it. And they were quite clever because they got a television company involved. So that gave them more publicity. But they had to do the work themselves. They learned a lot, and it's still quirky. It's better than it was when they first took it over. Right. It could probably be improved again, but that's probably further down the line. But that gives them another sort of 4 or 5 years to again bring that revenue in.
Could they do it then that they kind of refurb it in parts while still generating revenue, or did they have to kind of stop the revenue and do the refurb?
It is possible to do that, but it's messy, and it causes a lot of disruption and slows the process down. So in their case, they did close down through the winter season and did the work then, but they also told the story, which made it quite interesting. Right. From the I suppose the voyeurism, the consumer aspect, and they used that to their benefit. But also they've linked into the local environment, and although this is a lifestyle business for them, ultimately they want to make money from this property, and they will do, but it could be a 10, 12, maybe 15-year investment.
Right. But so let's say in an investor who wants to make a kind of quicker profit or generate some quicker revenue, what you essentially could do is buy a castle that obviously needs work, so you're still getting it at a good deal, but is good enough for someone to stay at. And then you kind of go, summer season, I rent it out. Winter season, we do a bunch of work. And then we rent it out the next summer. And then obviously that doubles the time, but
Yes.
you're making revenue 6 months out of the year. And as you say, it does give you a story to tell, and the experience changes for each time.
It does, Daniel. Where I've seen the most success with these larger properties is where there's a building company or a construction company, linked to the owner. So they can bring those skills in at cost.
Yeah.
And from there, they can do the development very quickly. So we do see a lot of property companies getting involved in this sector, but they don't know how to run a hotel. So they get other expertise in to manage that side of the business, but they own the asset. So that's a very good route for people to come in for properties of this sort of ilk.
Right. Yeah. Where you have, and of course, it's not, as we said, it's not any building company. You need to have that specialized knowledge.
Absolutely.
So, but for a lot of us here on the show, we are international investors. So we obviously don't have a local building company. So how would we go about doing a deal like this and still being able to see some success? What would you recommend?
I think there's two avenues. One, it becomes a lifestyle thing, and it's something that you want to be part of for a longer period of time. To come in and buy a property and turn it around, it does need a huge amount of vision and passion to deliver that. And yes, you can get local people involved, you can have contacts, etc. But just to find a property and to quickly do it up and get a return on it is not that easy unless you're on the ground.
Yeah. Well, and that's a challenge we always have as internationals, but obviously even more so when doing castles.
Indeed.
But if we look at the back end then, because obviously valuing a castle also becomes very, very different to how we value a property. Because, when we value our regular buy to let property, we look at what did the neighbor sell theirs for? And you don't really do that in castles, going, well, the neighbor sold their castle for X, and last year another castle was sold. It's a slightly different market. Yeah. So how would I go about valuing? So for example, that beautiful castle behind you, how does someone go about valuing something like that?
Well, they are unique properties. So, the easiest thing would be to bring an estate agent in and put some sort of value on it. You can't compare it, as you say, to the property next door. But the price really is, what someone is prepared to pay for it. There was an absolutely wonderful castle down in Kenmore Bay. And it went on the market in 2007 for £15 million. It took 13 years to sell. And that's the other thing, that these properties do not sell quickly. Yeah. In 2010, the price dropped to 10 million. In 2018, it didn't have been sold. The price dropped to 4.5 million.
Whoa.
And it was sold for 3.5.
Wow. So from a starting price of 15
million.
Yeah.
And the castle is just fairy tale gorgeous beside a huge lock. It's just brilliant. And for 3.5 million, that is exceptional value.
Yeah. Because then you got to look at it. So obviously you can always do a kind of a bricks and mortar style valuation, or you could do the commercial valuation. So yes. Depending on obviously the size of this castle, what you guys do is you create that amazing experience. And we talked about it before. People could pay £100,000 for a week to stay in a property. So a castle like that one, what kind of an annual revenue, if marketed well and run well, could you expect to have?
Well, for a property of that quality, and again, the interiors are amazing. There's nothing to say that you couldn't get £80,000 to £100,000 per week. However, it's not just about opening the door and letting them in. No. It's that whole experience. It's, the butler's there, the expensive car is on the driveway that they can use whenever they want. They've got a chauffeur, they've got a top chef, etc. So this is about somebody coming in and having an experience in what is a castle property. Yeah. And its location, its service, its quality, it's so many things that, sort of warrant that price tag for a week in the property.
And how about the season? I mean, how long is the season for a property like that? Are we talking the 5 weeks of summer, or do you have a full year's worth of bookings?
Well, that comes down to marketing, really. But in Ireland, if people are looking for a summer holiday, you've got an 8-week, 10-week slot.
Right, I thought you were going to say 2 weeks in Ireland, but okay then.
But that's prior to the owners obviously taking it for their summer holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the other thing is you've got festive, you've got events. So if somebody wanted a wedding there, that could fill up 10 weekends, 12 weekends a year. It just depends how it's marketed, the type of property, and the numbers involved. I mean, if it was a hotel property, you've got 52 weeks. It might be a bit quiet in November, but you've got a whole year to sell. But exclusive use properties work slightly differently, and it depends what market you're targeting.
Right. But just like hearing the numbers you throw, this, it sounds like if you could get a castle like that for 3.5 million and do a decent job marketing it, your yield would be off the charts. You're talking about a 30-40% yield per year. Obviously, again, you have massive costs. It's not your 10% letting agency. But at the same time, even if your costs are 70%, that's a great cash flowing property in that case.
Absolutely. And as soon as as long as you can pay the heating bill, then from that point of view there is profit to be had, but it's targeting what is a high net worth audience that wants that type of experience, and they are unique experiences. So for example, the Duke of Devonshire has his Irish castle, and that's Lismore Castle. Well, that's about that sort of price range. But what happens is you get multi-generational families coming in and they have this wonderful week or 2-week experience in Ireland. And then they go home and they just think, that was just so good, I want to go back again. So they actually come back year after year if you get that service and that feel right. But that's like stepping back in time. It's almost like, it's
you become an 1800s Duke. Yeah, you become an 1800s Duke and get to experience that.
Absolutely, it's the Downton Abbey touch, without a doubt.
So when we do this, I mean, for most of us here, we obviously don't have castle experience until we've done that first deal. So tell me a little bit about what do you guys do in your business? How, if I went out to go and acquire a castle, when do you get involved? How do you support, and how do you what do you do with the marketing?
We obviously know a lot of castle owners. We're watching what comes on the market. There's a lot of stuff off market sale. But what we'll have people coming and saying, right, I'm interested in buying a castle in Scotland because I've got some Scottish heritage or whatever, and I have a business and I want to use it for that, but also let it out. So we'll help in the sort of finding and setting up the contacts to find the properties, and let them get on with the deal. And should that be successful and they do want to let it out, our sort of expertise is about attracting people in to stay in the properties. So we can support in everything on the marketing side once they've purchased that property, and we bring customers in to have the experience.
How do you do that? How do you market? I mean, it's not like you put this on Airbnb, at least if you're not going the hotel route. Like, how do you market to the ultra high net worth and convince someone to put £100,000 to come and stay for a week?
Well, the customers are looking for unique experiences. So our brand, we've been going for 24 years now. A lot of people know about Celtic castles. Right. So from that point of view, we might be a first stopping point. They might know about myself or be referred. So a lot of our clients are referred. So you must have a look at the Celtic Castles website, or you must speak to Roger the Castle Man. Right. And because I know the owners and I go and stay in the properties, and
I think of it when I hear that, it's like How I Met Your Mother. Like, yeah, I got a castle guy. Yeah. All right. So it comes from these referrals. It comes from people knowing, I'm guessing you don't have too many competitors in your industry. I mean, there must be a handful that you would go to.
Yeah, there are people who will feature a couple of castles, but nobody specializes in the niche as detailed and would have as much knowledge as we have. But for example, I was up with an owner in Scotland and they bought a castle and refurbished it. And this was just a couple of months ago. And we stayed for a couple of days, got to know them, and then started to look at what they could do with the property. And, in effect, this is a family home. They will move out. We will bring a team in to run the property, and we will also create experiences around that. So if they want to go and visit, a distillery that nobody can get into, that's private or whatever, we can set that up. If they want a helicopter trip to wherever, or they need, 4x4 driving up into the Scottish Highlands, we can pull a package together that then makes that an attractive experience for guests coming in.
Right.
And we can do everything from the private jet to picking them up at the airport to getting them to castle and giving them a wonderful experience.
And how would so for, let's say I'm doing a castle deal now,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously I'd reach out to you, largest in the industry and all that, but at the same time you have a lot of castles and a lot of potential experiences out there. How do you how does my experience become unique? Because, well, probably any castle could have a helicopter, but
Yep.
how do we create a story around my castle that makes it especially amazing?
One of the fascinating things about castles is there are no two the same. So they are all totally unique. So you can't compare apples with apples. So one of the key things will be location. It will be the activities that are wrapped around it. It could be the decor, the look and feel. It can also be the history and the story linked to the property. So, for example, if you wanted to sleep in a room that Henry VIII slept in, we can do that.
Right.
If you want to sleep in a room and a bed that Mary Queen of Scots slept in, we can do that. So it's linked to what they are interested in. So if it's golf, if it's fishing, if it's shooting,
yeah,
that
right.
all
So you create that both the historical connection, who's been here before, because I'm sure anything that has the right to be called a castle has to have had some kind of exciting ownership in the past.
Indeed. I mean, this one behind me is owned by a farmer, would you believe? A guy called Sean. It's down in the southeast of Ireland. And the last time I was there, I gate crashed one of our clients' 50th birthday parties. And I rocked up on a motorbike, had a present for him, and was lucky enough to be invited in to stay. And that was great. And he's now a friend, which is lovely. But, he was looking at different properties. We got him involved with this one. And he came, stayed for a week. They toured the whole of Ireland and used this as a base, and it was fantastic. But Sean rebuilt this, and it was just a ruin on his farm. And he's done half of it, and it's beautifully done inside. And he's had no experience. He's a farmer, and he's pulled it together. I've got another lovely property in Scotland, and a farmer owned the field that this ruined castle sat in. And his best friend went off to Wall Street, made his fortune, and the two of them got together and rebuilt the castle. Fantastic story.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's part of what attracts people to the properties. Yeah. But then it's the location, and it's all the things they can do there. I mean, personally, when I go and stay in these properties, I'm not interested in doing stuff outside. I just want to sit in and just think, gosh, this is an amazing building. Yeah. The history in here. I get up early in the morning just to sit in the Great Hall.
Well, I can imagine. It must be an incredible experience. And obviously for you, getting to hang out in all these places without paying the £100,000 per week, that's a nice job perk, right?
It is a good perk. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's a good perk.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, so if I want to learn more from you, if I want to get involved in castles myself, where do we find you? How do we learn more from you?
Probably the easiest thing is just to go on to the Celtic Castles website, and you'll find my details on there. Do a search for the Castle Man. I'm on LinkedIn, so that's another good way to find me. As I say, if you just do a search for Roger the Castle Man, I'll pop up.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. This was very exciting. So for anyone who wants to start doing castle deals, Roger is the castle man. So let's see what that leads to.
Thanks very much, Daniel.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you for listening. I have an exciting piece of news for you in a moment, so make sure you stay tuned, and I'll see you in a bit. Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? I'm so excited. When I heard the yield on that 3.5 million pound castle, that is incredible. The upside is amazing. I got to start getting into castles, right? But thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you for being a part of Momentum Property Education. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you get all the updates and all the information as they come out. And of course, make sure you stay tuned for next episode, because next episode is with Lukasz Brzezinski, where we walk through exactly the step-by-step process from him making the decision of buying a deal to going the whole way through. How do you decide the strategy? How do you fund it? How do you structure it? What type of deal? What do you tell the sourcing agents? How do you analyze your deals? The whole way through so that your deals are successful. Lukasz is one of the smartest investors I've ever met. And of course, he's one of the co-founders of Momentum Property Education. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that episode. It will be great. Thank you so much again for joining us, and I'll see you soon.